I'm Robert Moore, and welcome if you're new here, or welcome back if you've been watching these for a little while. Can't be too long. Hadn't been doing them that long. That said, I'm going to start off with a bit of fun today. This video, and that is somebody has asked me what these white things are back over here behind me. And so one is quite obviously a bookshelf that the with the little boxes that you can slide into the shelves that I have an air filter system set on top of. And so that's one of the white things. The other two white things, one on top of the other, the one with the black face over here, right about there, is a dehydrator. So it's where I frequently will core and slice up apples or other fruits or things like that, and will put them in there for overnight and turn them into apple chips or fruit chips or whatever. And on top of it is a broken apart, where I did some cleaning on it, uh, air humidifier. Very necessary thing up here and where I'm at in the winter because the air inside buildings gets horrifically dry. So, yeah, that goes into my office at work when I'm during the wintertime. So that said, that's what the white things are. And then these over here, of course, my mascots. That's Rufus that I'm pointing at. He's a sunspot dragon. And over there beside him, barely visible, is Riley, a little blue dragon that my daughter gave me once upon a time. So that's Rufus and Riley, and a humidifier and dehydrator. So, anyway, getting on to the topic of the day for this video, I'm going to discuss why I write. Now, you hear a lot of people talking about they write because they have to, they must. And I'm not going to be one of those. I mean, there is a certain amount of truth in that, even if I gave up on the idea of ever seeing them in print or in electronic ink on a screen, or things like that. I would probably still write. Basically, for the real reason, which is I think I've got stories to tell. I get an idea, it gets in my head, it gnaws at me, it worms at me, and it's not that I get a compulsion, I have to write it. It's just, it doesn't feel right not getting it out of there. It's not putting it on a page and seeing what it looks like. I know that sounds a little funny, but it really is different when you're thinking through the story in your head and then seeing it as words on a page or on a screen. So that's why I write. Is I think I've got interesting stories to tell, and so yeah. As for how long and when I started writing, that would probably have to go back to when I was about, I'd say 7 or 8. I could tell you specifically because of what I'm about to tell you, and I could look up when the movie came out. But I was in that age range when I wrote my first story. And my first story came about after I'd seen the Disney movie The Black Hole, a movie you probably have never heard of, much less seen. And I saw it, and by then I was already determined I was going to be an astronomer. So I wrote a story about a captain on a spaceship, a starship that was in orbit around a black hole. And basically, the story boiled down to a lot of dialogue exposition about what a black hole was and what we knew about them at that time. Um, so it was terrible. So, how do I know this? Well, because my grandmother, for some reason, kept that thing. Um, we found it when we were going through her effects after she passed. So, here was this 4 or 5 pages of handwritten exposition in this tiny scrawl from a 7, 8 year old. Yeah. So I know about my first story because of that. Otherwise, I would have forgotten it. Trust me, it was worth forgetting. That said, my next foray into writing probably happened in the early 90s. unless you count what I did as running our tabletop RPGs, which borders on writing because you do come up with the ideas, you sketch out the outline of what you want, what you have in mind for the players to go through and everything. But I don't really count that. You probably shouldn't either. That said, 90s, I wrote a story after hearing a song by the Police. And the song just gave me an idea. Hey, wouldn't this be a cool story? And so I started writing it down, and it was the first story that I turned in about 10 years later, submitted, and looking back on it, it was rightfully rejected. It was, again, relied heavily on exposition, and something I finally, in this day and age, these years, have beaten out of myself. But I submitted it in around 2000-ish, 2004, somewhere in there. And that one was based on a song. And it just got in my head. And it's like, hey, this is a cool story. Let's write it down. That story may come out eventually. I will do a better job of it this time when I rewrite it. But I still think the story is cool. So I am going to rewrite it. It's just a question of when. Fast forward another decade, and I started writing again. Probably, I mean, I wrote bits and pieces of stories between then, but the next serious attempt was the story that became Mortal.exe. And I probably started on that around 2016. Wrote it up as a short story. Daughter of Hades and Persephone goes to college, inadvertently creates an AI. Didn't get much traction with the story. In fact, though I can't say that, I did get a rejection with commentary, with what do you call it? Comments, and on it. And oddly enough, those comments said this relies too much on exposition. I started skimming at such and such page. Interesting premise, but we're going to pass. So my reaction to that rejection was quite the opposite of what most people would do, which would be, too much exposition, I need to cut out. I'd already cut out so much that I wanted to put into that story. And so I was like, okay, let's kill the exposition and let's add in all those little elements that we cut out because we wanted a nice, tight, compact story. And I wrote Mortal.exe. Took me 3 years because I was editing as I went along with that comment from the rejection letter in mind so that I didn't expound upon what all was going on and how the world was working. And it just wasn't needed. The editor that gave that comment was 100% correct. I like to think I've gotten over that phase and tell the story now instead of trying to explain everything. But as you can tell, I am prone to explanation. But this is why I will also recommend and why I did get an editor. And she was ruthless about it. You don't need this. You don't need this. So she was rather ruthless on me about that. But it was nowhere near what it had been. I didn't do a whole lot of the explaining. Oh, this is what's really happening. All that's gone. And so it's a much tighter, much better story for being a novel now instead of a short story. I included a lot of, like I said, little pieces that laid on the editing floor trying to make it a short story. So when I decided, no, we're going to put all that in. We're going to put in the scenes with Demeter and with the other gods and goddesses. And so there's a lot more going on now than there was in that original version. So that's where we are now. And now I'm starting to write constantly. I'm writing, got 3 short stories in the works at the moment. One for an anthology that we're going to be doing with the Moorhead Friends writing group that I'm part of. One is a story that came to me thanks to a friend's dog who has now passed, and I'm going to do that story because he was a good boy, and there needs to be a story told about all the good boys. So there's that one in the works, and there's a couple more that I'm editing on. One involves not fantasy and gods and goddesses and so forth, but actually a spaceship. So I'm working on a lot of things at the moment, and that kind of lends a lie to the, I don't feel compelled. No, there is a certain level of compulsion. I must write. These ideas are in my head. They've got to get out. So on that note, I think I will call this video to a close, and invite any questions you may have for me over the next week. And I look forward and hope you'll tune in and visit with us again. Until then, have a good day.